This 1996 Toyota 4Runner has been my wife's daily driver for years. I put a newer, not rusty frame underneath it, fixed all of the bodywork, including replacing the rocker panels because they were gone. And aside from a couple glitches here and there, this thing has been awesome. And a couple videos ago, you guys saw me rob some parts from this 4Runner. This is also a 1996 4Runner, but it is a limited model. And the reason it's here is because we robbed the 3.4 from it to swap into another truck. This 4Runner was really rusty, the frame is really crusty, and to top it off, it was registered in Alberta. Meaning, if it ever wanted a chance of being on the road again, it would need an out-of-province inspection, which it's just never gonna pass. So it got destined a parts vehicle, which is why my wife's rig with over 500,000 kilometers now has the transmission, the transfer case, front and rear diff from this guy. And this week we're gonna take some more. The most important thing I wanna take from that 4Runner is the air conditioning. This rig is an SR5 model, meaning practically base model when it comes to these 4Runners. No air conditioning, no sunroof, no leather, no nothing. It's pretty basic. And now that we have a little baby, I think it makes sense to actually put air conditioning in this rig, especially because I got a 4Runner with all the parts I need. Pulling pretty much the whole dash apart here so that we can get at all the heater core and AC boxes, all this stuff behind the dash. And while I'm at it, this thing does have a much cleaner dash, so that might get moved over too. So I got pretty much everything out of here that I think needs to be taken out to swap AC into the other 4Runner. If I had to guess, the blower motor stuff is going to be the same between them, and same with the heater core side of things. I think I just needed to swap this middle area here where the AC lines come in from the firewall. Hopefully, with any luck, all the plugs for the AC stuff will exist on the inside of this 4Runner. I'm hoping that Toyota kept the body harnesses the same between the two and it's just going to be plug and play, but worst case scenario, I'll wire it all myself. I'll figure it out. Here's the pile of parts I just removed from the 4Runner. Now it's time to do the same to this guy. We know every upgrade brings you one step closer to that ultimate adventure. But what's the point in having a killer air conditioning system in this 4Runner if you don't know where to get out and explore? And that's where the sponsor of today's video, Onyx Off-Road, comes in handy. With detailed maps, trail info, and offline capabilities. It's honestly a must-have tool for all off-road enthusiasts. Whether you're seeking remote trails, planning your next overland trip, or just venturing out where your off-road rig was born to roam, let Onyx Off-Road be your guide. So after you get your rig's AC running nice and cool, check out my link in the video description, download Onyx, and start mapping your next adventure. Now let's get back to finishing off this AC install. So what I suspected is totally correct. This plug right here, which was unused, plugs right into here. And if we look at the back of this guy here, this is where that AC switch goes into. You can see the plug in there, and you can see it's already plugged in, which is pretty rad. Moving over to the engine bay side of things, if we look way down here, there is a plug that is unused on this engine harness. Plugs right into the AC pump. And after that, I was thinking, I wonder if the fuse box in this thing set up for AC. And look at this. The third fuse down on the right side is labeled AC. Pull this off, and there's already a fuse in the slot and pins and everything. So from the factory, the 96 4Runner is totally ready to accept AC as plug and play. All the body harness, everything is there, including the fuse for it, which that part blew my mind. It makes sense that auto manufacturers, in order to save money, they'll only make one body harness between all the trim models and just leave like dummy or blank switches in their spot. Yeah, this is a little more than I expected. Also, it looks like the heater core and blower motor are identical between the two, so I only need to swap out the center section here for the air conditioning. If we look in the engine bay, you can see a plug here, and a plug way at the bottom down there. So I just got to knock these guys out, and then the 4Runner is ready to accept the air conditioning. So knowing all that, let's get this thing loaded with air conditioning parts. This plug here was just here in the body harness. Bam! AC stuff just plugs in. And this was the other factory plug here. Bam! Oh look, another plug. And the very last plug right there. Bam! Everything just plugs in like factory because it is factory. Now that this air conditioning box down here is plugged in, I went ahead and plugged the AC condenser in just on top just to make sure everything's working. And if we go in the cab, turn the key on, check it out. We got a working air conditioning button. Now in theory, I just need to put everything back together now, go into the engine bay, add all of the air conditioning stuff from the firewall forward, and then charge the AC obviously, but I think electrically, everything should work. All right, now it is time for the fun part, which is throwing the dash back in this thing. Keep in mind, if you're doing this at home, like if you're trying to follow this video as kind of a guide to AC swap your 4Runner, this dash swap is totally unnecessary. The only thing you need to swap was that little box down there, essentially for inside the cab. I'm just doing more work because the other dash was in better condition. Our next course of action is to work on all this stuff that needs to go in the engine bay. When I pulled the engine from this 4Runner, I kept all of the AC stuff aside right here. So I think we'll start with what is going to be the most difficult part, which is the AC pump. It's got this bracket here that needs to attach to the side of the block. If we look in the wheel here, you can see 4 holes. The top left one, which shares a hole with the engine mount. There's a hole down there, a hole up there, and a hole right there that I am using for a ground. And those holes are where 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts go to tie this guy in. So I think to make it easier, I'm gonna pull this tire off, and then I have pretty good access through the inner fender here. So let's get to it. That bottom bracket is now mounted to the block. I moved the ground from that bolt over to this other bolt facing backwards. So I'm still using one of those engine block holes for a ground. Now it's time to attach this guy to the bracket we just attached to the block. It mounts pretty well the same way. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that instead of going to the block, go to 1, 2, 3, 4 holes on that plate. So it's been a few weeks since we last filmed the AC swap stuff. Started putting everything together in the engine bay and realized that I'm missing a really large component, the AC condenser. So like I mentioned earlier in a video, we got that parts 4Runner specifically to do a 3/4 swap in a buddy's truck. So I wasn't the only one taking parts off of it when we were pulling the engine. So I figured maybe Buddy removed this AC condenser, but I couldn't find it anywhere. And it turns out the previous owner of the parts 4Runner already robbed it. Instead of going out and buying a new condenser, I found a used one. And not only is it a used one, it is a used one from a Tacoma, which is why I robbed all of the lines and stuff to go with it. The Tacoma and 4Runner condensers are different. This little canister here mounts on the opposite side on a 4Runner versus a Tacoma, so that's why I took everything. Let's see how it fits. So first, I do need to take this latch support out to slide the condenser in. Horns are gonna come out too, just to make room. This is gonna be tight with all these winch cables in here. All right, let's see how it slides in. I was worried this was really corroded and not gonna wanna come off without breaking or stripping the aluminum threads, so we just kept it on. I've decided to make life easier by removing the headlights. Now let's try to swing this guy. That is a condenser in its home. If it was the actual 4Runner condenser, and it wasn't trying to install this canister and everything at the same time, you probably wouldn't have had to remove the headlights. But here we are. 1 bolt, 2 bolt, that's secure. So I just found a minor issue with using the Tacoma parts. This is the strap that holds this canister in its home. You can see that hole right there, which is where that bolt goes, which is all fine and dandy. That lines up perfectly. But the problem is there's a second bolt on this right there that has absolutely no spot there. So we're gonna have to drill. In your hole. Aha! So now we got a bolt going through right there and a bolt going through the factory hole there. Unfortunately, it looks like I need to pull the coolant reservoir to get at the nut on the other side to actually tighten it down, but that's not too bad. And just like that, we got access to the bolt, which is right there. Perfect. All right, now we should be able to strap this guy in. All right, so now it's time for the fun part. We get to fish this guy, which goes across the front like this, but then in through this little hole here, back underneath the intake, and into one of those lines that are popping out of the firewall. That wasn't that bad. So yeah, that guy bolts in there, comes across down in underneath the intake here, and straight into there. There's also these little tabs here that were on that line, so I'll utilize factory holes like this one right here, fix it into position with a couple of bolts. Okay, so getting the condenser and this little canister in place, I think are like the hardest part of this job, and realistically, they weren't that hard. Now, with that in place, the smaller line ran all the way back to the cab. There is 2 more lines to run. One being this hose here that attaches to the condenser. In my case, I never unbolted it because I didn't want to pull threads out. That fishes through here, over, and then right there to the left port on the pump, leaving us with one last hose, which will go from there to the last port on there. So if we fish this down here, there, and now tighten the bolt. And just like that, all of the air conditioning stuff on this 4Runner is done. All it needs is to get the air conditioning system charged at a shop. Oh, and I need to install a belt, which I don't have on me. That of course just goes down to the air conditioning pump, to the crank. The crank pulley's got the slot for the belt, so nothing there to worry about. It's all easy. So now it's time to just put everything back together. So I did find an issue here with using the Tacoma air conditioning system in the 4Runner. That little canister there, right behind the headlight, is conveniently right where the upper headlight mount used to be. Yeah, I cut off the upper headlight mount. It's kind of overkill because these headlights already have 2 mounts here, 1 mount underneath. So 3 is plenty. It'll be worth it to have air conditioning in this thing. But for those of you at home, It is easier just to start with a 4Runner air conditioning system if it's a 4Runner. If you have a Tacoma and you're trying to add AC, I think you can use either the 4Runner stuff or the Tacoma stuff. It's just 4Runner where you're going to want to use actual 4Runner parts. Or do what I did. Honestly, installing the air conditioning system in this thing was so easy. Like, way easier than me or Phoenix thought it would be. This is definitely a mod pretty much anyone can do, even a beginner. So I'd say even if you're not super experienced with working on vehicles, this is probably a mod that you don't need to be afraid trying at home. Anyways, guys, that's about it for this week's episode of Dirt.Garage. If you do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button, and hey, consider subscribing. We upload weekly Toyota, building, wheeling, and operating content. Anyways, we'll catch you next week. Peace.